I'm not beaching the police. This is a joke, mate.
And this is what happens. I swear this is what happens as well, is they will kick and scream about, whether it's anti-racism or it's anti-immigration. And do you know who ends up getting the finger? It's all the cops. I swear that they think that the cops are the government and that the reason why we're having this issue is the police. Welcome, and if this is your first time to my channel, please don't forget to head over to my channel and click subscribe. Looking to grow up those subscriber numbers. Looks like most of the people that view my videos haven't quite yet subscribed, so that would be super helpful. Let's get started on everything to do with this anti-immigration rallies that happened over the weekend.
Police officers have been injured, pelted with rocks and bottles in Melbourne as they attempted to keep rival protesters from clashing. Officers kept the peace in Sydney as anti-immigration and anti-racism groups demonstrated across the country.
The city divided. In one corner of Hyde Park, the anti-immigration March for Australia.
We don't have enough housing at the moment for the people we've got here, and we're letting them in by the thousands.
In the other...
So the last time that I covered the previous March for Australia Day rally, my last video on this, I still kind of stand by the point that this isn't really like an anti-immigration rally. It's trying to tackle the housing crisis. Like, if we did not have a housing crisis, then I don't think that most of the people here would be protesting against immigration. So I kind of feel like the actual issue that we're trying to tackle here is the housing issues that's going on in Australia. If you agree, chuck in the comments below. Otherwise, if you think immigration alone, separate from housing, is an issue, then yeah, comment below. Happy to hear what you think.
Corner. The rally against racism.
Australia for everyone. We're built on the back of migrants.
A different view down the road.
You wonder why I'm angry.
So angry, she held up her own anti-immigration protest. Several thousand rolled up, united under the Southern Cross, calling for immigration to be reined in.
We should have quality migration, not quantity migration.
At the last anti-immigration march, neo-Nazis gate-crashed the front of the rally. This time, no Nazis. Ordinary Australians and young children are leading the front.
She calls herself Beck.
So already, last time they did the March for Australia, they kind of said that the neo-Nazi groups, they were the ones that came and disrupted and, caused violence and all that sort of stuff. Now they're doing it again, and now I think they're saying, I think I read something that they believe is like Antifa, or anyways, they're saying the anti-racism kind of groups are, creating the violence and stuff. So I don't know, it just seems to be always something, but let's continue.
Freedom. The national organiser for March for Australia.
In a crowd like this, you're going to have many different opinions. However, March for Australia's message is end mass immigration, protect our heritage, our culture and our way of life.
See there, protect our way of life, protect our culture. I'm not too sure what the underlining message is there. This is sort of what I've been having a little bit of difficulties understanding. Because one side of the fence, I mean, she said, other people can have different opinions, but, at the end of the day, if you're trying to stop mass immigration due to the housing crisis, so that way there's more housing supply for Australians, then okay, then that's sort of the reason why you're supporting the protest. But if you're starting to say that it's impacting our culture and our heritage and these sort of things, well, for starters, I think if you're looking at our heritage, then you'll probably be on the side of the other side, wouldn't you not? I don't know, but it's just interesting to sort of see. I'm interested to hear what people sort of think regarding it's destroying our culture, because I kind of haven't seen that firsthand, really.
And imagine walking outside St Mary's after morning mass to see a forest of flags and speakers calling for a halt to migration.
It's not good.
In Melbourne, the police had a tougher job using stun grenades and pepper spray to keep the two groups apart.
Oh, damn. Far out.
To exercise our democratic right to protest.
Tactical police were pelted with rocks and glass bottles.
Not a small rock. We had our port members who come out with their riot gear and their shields. These rocks were cracking some of those shields today.
One officer suffered a broken hand, another cuts to their leg.
Today was a bad day for Victoria Police. I think it was a bad day for Melbourne.
In the Brisbane March for Australia,
who was throwing the rocks in that? Anyone know?
MP Bob Catter vented his concerns.
Oh, here we go.
There's no jobs. All of the factories and production units have all closed down and gone overseas, right? So what the hell are they doing there?
Mark Burrows, 9 News.
Protest violence has again erupted in our city as riot police and demonstrators went toe-to-toe on city streets. It came as anti-racism activists tried to confront an anti-immigration rally. Police say a number of officers were injured, describing protesters who threw rocks and bottles as cowards. More from Isabel Quinlan.
Flashbangs and pepper spray.
Yeah, so am I meant to understand that so there's two sides? There's the March for Australia, the anti-immigration side, and then there is the anti-racism side. And the anti-racism side are the ones who are sparking the violence and throwing rocks at police, if that's sort of what I'm understanding from this.
On Spring Street, as police move in to keep opposing protesters apart. And some of their own become sitting targets on another violent Sunday in the city.
These were being thrown at police. Bottles filled with shards of glass were being thrown at the police. Rotten fruit was being thrown at police.
The Blue Line had been bolstered in preparation, but tonight 2 officers are in hospital and the top brass is furious.
I have a sergeant, a female sergeant, who went to hospital with a suspected broken hand because she was kicked at. I have a member with a nasty gash on his leg.
Yeah, so who's doing the attacks, and why are they? What I assume is that the police were trying to separate the two protests that are going on at the same time, and then we've got some people that are sort of crossing those lines and stepping in. That's where the police have sort of come in, and yeah, it's kind of kicked off from there.
It was a group against mass immigration wrapped in Australian flags.
I'm not racist, but we really do need to look at our own people.
Versus those who...
You know, like I've kind of always said, you know, where people start off a sentence of like having to preface that they're not something, it generally means that the thing they're going to say afterwards, it's typically that thing. You know, like the amount of times that people are like, oh, I'm not judgmental, but you know, this person is like this, and it's like, oh, well, I'm not racist, but you know, these people are kind of like this, and it's kind of like, I don't think you can say like those two things together. It's kind of interesting, like whether you're anti-racist or I don't want to say racist, but like if you need to preface it, then I think you kind of need to maybe think about the way that you're going to say it a bit more.
Who say they're anti-racism and determined to outnumber.
We know that for every person here, there are thousands who stand behind us.
This was the second March for Australia rally organised for the streets of Melbourne in August.
Like, I wonder if it's kind of like, okay, so the anti-immigration people are basically saying that there's too many immigrants coming through, and Australia needs to prioritise Australians in this time and age, because at the moment there's a housing crisis. A lot of Australians are suffering, and Australians as a whole, or maybe like let's just say a majority of Australians at the moment believe that there is an unfair sway and that Australians need to be taken care of. Okay, that's fair to say. Like, that's not, I wouldn't say that's racist, but you don't have to, like, to be able to say that, you don't have to preface it with "I'm not racist." You know what I mean? Like, anyone agree or disagree, or kind of feel like no matter what, if you're going to talk about immigration, it's kind of racist?
Neo-Nazis were front and centre as violence erupted, and a First Nations camp was ambushed. Today, a key leader is still locked up over his alleged actions, and organisers acknowledge their numbers have dwindled.
Do not be demoralised. It's always going to be a little more difficult in the current political climate.
I've come every time, and it's for that.
Yeah, so like the neo-Nazi, like this dude here, I forgot what his name is, but yeah, he outspokenly said that, you know, he's all for white supremacy and this sort of stuff. Like, that is clearly a racist group. Like, when we look at like the anti-racist side of the party, or not like the anti-racist people that are part of that protest, I think this is kind of the people that they're up against. And then to sort of clump these guys in with the anti-immigration people, I think is, it's not quite right. But you can quickly see how they're going. There's going to be some grey area, which is probably what sparks a lot of this.
Reason for the kids, I just fear for their future.
Police say this time they didn't cause trouble.
The people that came to pick the fight were police, were the issue-motivated groups on the left. They're cowards.
These people are trying to build a divisive movement based on racism, and we say racism isn't welcome here.
They come on a boat to themselves. The hypocrisy in that.
The counter rally gathered an hour earlier, marching from the State Library to State Parliament. They were ready for a face-off. But as tensions flared and protesters separated and spread out, so too did the effort to restore some calm. Police are not taking any chances. They continue to move around the city, following each group, making sure there's a human barrier between the two sides. By the early afternoon, officers had regained control of the city, arresting any troublemakers who remained.
Really, enough's enough.
And Isabel Quinlan joins me now from police headquarters. Izzy, do we know how many people were arrested?
Well, after all of that violent behaviour today, Pete, only one person was arrested, a 30-year-old woman from Brunswick West. Further arrests, though, are not being ruled out. Police are looking for another 40 to 50 people they believe were involved, and they concede it's going to be a difficult task ahead of them, with many of those people wearing face coverings and hoodies, Pete, but they say they won't rest until those people are brought to justice.
Isabel Quinlan, thank you for that report.
Good evening. Thousands of people have swarmed our city streets, calling for the end of mass migration in another March for Australia. But they weren't the only ones with a message. Warring factions of political ideals kept apart by a heavy police presence, as the anti-immigration and anti-racism protesters each battled to have their voices heard.
Aussie patriotism on steroids.
The war's over, send them home!
Sweeping the streets of the CBD, our flag, our national icons and our sporting cries.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie!
Cannon fodder for these Queenslanders on one side of Australia's culture war, claiming the lucky country is...
We are not far right, we are normal common sense Aussies. Yeah, like... It's kind of hard to, like, because a lot of this stuff, it kind of starts to blend in with, like, I've always sort of said this about Australia, but there doesn't seem to be like these very far right and far left, like extreme kind of, groups. Like there are obviously some, but they're not as prevalent and they're not as vocal kind of like as the US. And I feel like we're slowly starting to sort of adopt these ideologies and these like conversation points from the US, and Australia is starting to slowly slip from being quite center left, center right, and then sort of that needle is kind of losing control and kind of swaying both sides now, which isn't good for Australia at all. Do I think that there's an immigration issue in Australia? Well, yeah, like, we do let in, like, we are one of the highest net overseas migration countries in the world, especially in comparison to other Western countries like US and UK and that. And, we do have a housing crisis. We do have, some issues going on there. So, immigration does need to be looked at. That's just what the numbers say. But then kind of having to sort of spin these like far right, racist, anti-racist and all this sort of stuff into it, it kind of says a bit more about what's going on, and it kind of gives it a bit of a mechanism, as to what I understand, for these groups to basically be able to come out and have a voice. Like when they're talking about it's all the left, like the extreme leftists that are coming out and throwing rocks at the police. I wouldn't really think that what groups are doing that? Like, how do we know that it's the extreme left? Because so far from this, they actually haven't shown anyone getting arrested. They actually haven't shown specifically what groups they are. If someone is, if there's a party that is anti-racism, I would think that they're kind of for treating everyone equally. correct me if I'm wrong, like leftists are kind of always like the, you know, treat everyone equal, everyone's the same, then I just wouldn't see it sort of being violent in nature, I wouldn't think. But that's just sort of my initial take, unless I sort of see something coming up. But what do you guys think? Comment down below. Interested to hear of what you think the direction Australia is going with its left and right-wing ideologies.
Australia's culture war, claiming the lucky country is at capacity.
We're not going anywhere. This place belongs to us.
We do want immigrants. We just want ones who want to assimilate.
This is the second March for Australia here in Brisbane. Protesters again calling for the end of mass migration, which they say is crippling the country.
The left wing are making up lies and making us look like the bad people.
So like there, like the left wing, like who are you talking about? Because if you're talking about the Labor government, I wouldn't really call them. I wouldn't call them left. That's all. Like they are a little bit, but you know, in comparison to maybe the Liberals, or the coalition. But I wouldn't be going in and saying that they're like any sort of far left or that they're spinning some messages, because I think they've addressed that there's an immigration issue and that needs to be addressed. But, you know, like blaming it all on immigration, it's not the right way. That's kind of what I touched on in my last video on this is there's a lot more that we could be doing for housing if housing is kind of the driver. There's a lot more we can be doing for housing besides just, you know, boycotting or, you know, reducing, halving, getting rid of immigration. Yeah, there's other things to look towards. I just wonder why. And I think that's as well is why this, you know, that might even be a talking point for like the anti-racism movement or I want to say party, but group, is that if you want to tackle the housing crisis, why aren't you focusing more on other things rather than just immigration? You know, if you just pick on immigration, then yeah, you probably will look a little bit more racist if you're kind of picking on that one thing. So I don't know. It's kind of like a collation of things that I'm sort of putting together at the moment.
Shutting down roads, taking over bridges. But on the other side of the city and the political spectrum,
we want to march in solidarity with migrants and show people that they're welcome and they don't have to stay home afraid.
Those campaigning against racism.
So what do they say? Don't like being called Nazis, then don't attend Nazi rallies. Repeat Nazi call. So this is what I mean. Like this appeals to only a very small minority of the people that are protesting. I don't like that just because it doesn't send the right message at all, in my opinion, unless you guys think differently.
Racism.
Can we ask why you're marching today? Because I hate Nazis.
Police on foot.
Like who? Like no one's sort of like addressing any sort of. Like, no one in any of this is addressing, like, certain political leaders, or they're not talking about, like, certain personalities. They're not talking about or addressing certain types of groups. They're kind of just saying things out loud, but not even actually, like, pointing towards who should be making changes. This is what I just don't understand. And I think Australia kind of just does this around this topic.
And Wheels working to keep the peace.
I'm not beaching the peace. This is a joke, mate.
And when opposing ideologies appear to be on a collision course.
And this is what happens. I swear this is what happens as well, is they will kick and scream about, you know, whether it's anti-racism or it's anti-immigration. And do you know who ends up getting the finger? It's all the cops. I swear that they think that the cops are the government and that the reason why we're having this issue is the police. And then they don't even understand like any sort of corners of government where like, you know, the police are just enforcers of the law. They don't make the law. And then like people start to think that they're the ones that are like trying to benefit from it all, but yet they're the ones that sort of get the shit end of the stick sometimes. I like just by like this guy here breaching the peace, but like he's been escorted out because obviously he's like, you know, causing a ruckus. But then these two dudes will probably get the blame, like, oh, you won't even let me protest for anti-immigration, oh, blah, blah, blah. But, like, these two dudes are probably just doing their job and, like, just probably don't even have any sort of political views or anything. And I feel like this is what happens. It's like they're probably not even trying to, like, claim that it's Albanese that needs to address this, or if it's, you know, the Susan Ley, or if it's, you know, David Littleproud, or like whoever they're looking at, they're not even like, they probably don't even know who the housing minister is for the Labor Party. You know, maybe she needs to you know, start looking at or taking some more action. Like there's no one that's actually been addressed, or no sort of way of pointing the finger going, hey, we are protesting, so this particular person needs to make a change. So that's what I think is lacking in a lot of this, and probably why it sort of sways out of control, because no one actually really knows where to point their aggression. I don't know, maybe that's something.
And when opposing ideologies appear to be on a collision course, a police partition kept furies from facing off. A city divided.
Yeah, see, like, that's not cool. Yeah, like, that is going to... Like, that alone is going to tick off a lot of people. And, like, that's kind of, you know, in a sense, that is racist. You know, at a time where, you know, this kind of thing here is a little bit associated with the Palestine protests. Like, it's probably not, probably has nothing to do with it, but you see it. So people are likely to make that association. I'm pretty sure this one here, if I saw before, it said like socialist alternative. That looks like something to do with radicalists or socialists as well. Something about far right.
Still, police say on both sides the thousands who rallied today were largely peaceful, arresting
that's good.
just 3 people. Pat Heaney, 9.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's, you know, nothing's really changed. This is the thing. Like, I don't know how much impact any of this is making. I mean, you guys let me know what you think, but I don't know what impact this is actually making, instead of just people just raising some, you know, like they just want to scream and shout. Like this, you know, exactly what I said before, like no one actually knows where to point their aggression. You can point it towards the Prime Minister, but, you know, and then the day the Prime Minister also has his cabinet of ministers that are, you know, SMEs or, you know, specialists in their areas, and they're meant to be doing something about it. So why don't you sort of bang on the door for them? Same with the shadow ministers. They're meant to be, you know, trying to support change as well in Australia with immigration. So, like, everyone's sort of got, like, there's no specific people that are getting the message from these, and they don't even know what to do. Like, you know, I think there just needs to be a little bit more cohesion in the message that they're trying to say, instead of just like stop migration. It's like, okay, who's that addressed to? Just the Prime Minister? And the Prime Minister would probably got a million other things as well. Like, it's, yeah, I don't know. You guys might think differently or might know better than me, but let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you made it this far, please don't forget to head over to my channel and click the subscribe button